Welcome to Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice Merrick, and we've got a fun show today. We're going to be talking about some technical stuff. A guy who is a master of the dark arts of metal shaping is our guest today, and his name is Jake Krotje, and you can find him on Instagram at the Flying Dutchman CO, Flying Dutchman Company, right?
Right.
Jake, welcome to Horsepower Heritage.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
It was a fun ride up.
Totally, yeah. So Jake rode his motorcycle to the studio today, over 100 miles. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
160.
First time on the bike for how long?
I got the concussion in October, so basically since then.
Yeah. And, we might as well lead off with that. So Tell us about that mishap.
Well, I put the bike together. It had been apart for a couple of years. I finally got it to the level of, the realm of what I want it to be. It's not the end product of what I want it to be yet, but I put it together for the DGR last year. I got to be part of that. And the next weekend, I was riding dirt bikes in a friend's backyard, and I just got a little crazy with the throttle and wound up in the hospital.
And there was no drinking involved.
There was no drinking involved. No.
It was just one of those things.
No, they were electric KTM, like the free ride KTM.
Sure.
And I'm just not used to that level of power. It's like the power of a 450 in a 125 trials. I'm 6'1", so I'm sitting deep down into it. So it's like kind of like a toy bike almost, but the thing rips. And I blew past a corner, went on the outside of this tree on some pine needles over rock, and I just mashed into the throttle and it let go. I chopped the throttle and it pitched me into some more rocks. And I basically didn't work from October through early January.
And what kind of safety gear were you wearing?
I was wearing a Shoei RF 1100 and cracked the shell and the foam interior.
Wow.
So
the helmet did its job.
It did.
Yeah.
You
didn't crack your skull.
Luckily, no. But there was bruising, and
sure,
I had a hard time pronouncing words and saying what I wanted to say for weeks.
So it was a matter of when you say you had a hard time saying what you wanted to say, it was just the ability to express yourself?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I made a joke about a week later, and I kind of headbanged. Mm-hmm. And then for the next 2 days, I had trouble pronouncing words.
Wow.
It's that scary.
So one of my other guests, Julia LaPalme,
right,
who's a freelance photographer in the automotive and motorcycle space, and she's a really avid motorcyclist. So she had a bad accident.
We've actually talked, and we got our concussions within a week from each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and Julia and I talked about, her symptoms and her recovery and everything, and how subtle a concussion can be. You had some pretty pronounced symptoms, but I mean, for some people, it's just like they're sleepy all the time or they're depressed or whatever. And we're learning so much more about closed head injuries,
right?
So, but I'm glad that you have recovered, and
me too.
And also, that you allowed yourself recovery time. A lot of people do not just take it easy and let themselves heal.
In the beginning, I was not cognizant of where I was.
Yeah.
Until I started making those speech slurs and mistakes. And then I realized, no, I don't have the energy to keep going. I really do need to just sleep it off for 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
So
it can be rough.
And since then, the bike's been running, but I've been kind of gun shy,
Understandably.
I paid the price, and I can't afford to pay it twice. So today's first ride was very positive and very enjoyable.
That's good.
I did break down The intake boot on the left cylinder fell apart, cracked in half.
And by the way, we're talking about BMW R100.
Yeah,
right?
so I have a 1984 BMW R100 that I've modified like crazy. Done a lot of work to it. It doesn't really look like a BMW anymore, besides the cylinders. So yeah, I had made it up to El Toro Road on the 5 from North County, San Diego, where I live. And it just started sputtering out on me like I needed to switch to reserve. So I did that without looking down, flipped both the toggles up, and it didn't get any better. And I'm waiting for it to kick in. And then I look down and the carburetor's just like kind of dangling there.
Oh, man.
So I grabbed the thing and I shoved it up to where it was supposed to be, and the bike took off again. And I held it like that, and I rode to the off-ramp. And luckily I had a friend nearby that had an intake boot. And we wrapped some gaff tape around the inlet of the carburetor and made it work, and I made it the rest of the way. So
those repairs to me are a lot more satisfying than repairing it the right way.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just to get yourself out of the pickle.
Right.
It's really fun that way. It makes for great stories and also, your ingenuity. Like, oh, how am I going to tackle this issue? And I have limited resources. Right. So, and it was great, obviously, that your friend was available and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, all I had was a screwdriver and a wrench. I had to buy a knife to cut anyway. I was traveling light. Quarantine be damned.
Quarantine be damned. So we've established that you're a motorcyclist, but that certainly isn't your only area of interest. I mean, you've been a car guy pretty much since you were a kid, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, 13 or 14.
What kind of lit the fuse for you?
I got a ride in my uncle's street Manx. It had a ridiculously large engine for this little street buggy, like a Myers Manx.
Yeah. Let me guess, 2286?
No, it wasn't that big.
Okay.
But it was a really strong 1915.
Okay.
And we got on the freeway to go to the Temecula Rod Run in 2001 or whatever it was. And he just came from third down into second, and he said, "Watch this." And next thing I knew, he was doing a 360 through the intersection and actually catching it on the backside and getting on the highway. And I mean, it was so short geared that we could only do like 60 miles an hour.
Right.
But, it had some torque.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're so light.
Yeah. No, the thing probably weighed 1,200 pounds.
And you've got the engine over the rear wheels. Mm-hmm. So awesome.
Yeah. No, that was my first, that was my corruption moment.
Corruption moment. I like that. That's one I haven't heard before, but yeah, no, that works. So you were 13 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty vivid memory. Like,
oh yeah. No, that was intense.
Totally imprinted you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was my dad's best friend. We call him Uncle Rick, major father figure in my life. Unfortunately, we lost him to pneumonia in 2010. And, but he had a great impact on me, and I ended up working for him when I was in college. My first car was a Baja Bug I bought off of him for $300, and he taught me what to do to it. And between his help and my dad's help, that was my first car. It was a 65 Baja Bug.
Now, was it your run-of-the-mill street bug at the time you got it? And you Baja'd it, or was it kind of already... It
was already on its way.
Okay.
It had been in some kind of accident.
Gotcha.
But it didn't have... I really wanted that one-piece front end.
Yeah.
So, like the Baja 1000 race cars had the one-piece fiberglass piece.
Right.
I
saw one the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
They're coming back.
It's funny that you say that, because I saw this thing, and I thought, damn, they're cool. Mm-hmm. And... they're at the bottom of their depreciation curve right now, probably. And I'll bet you they hit as classics.
Because of the whole social media thing, different vehicles are getting more attention. So a couple years ago, there was a guy, Blake Wilkie. He did a pretty intense video down in San Diego. And he had this LS1 powered Baja Bug that he built. And he ripped around San Diego. Got into a little bit of trouble, but it made the Baja Bug cool again.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've seen them more and more and more.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I have to check. That's on YouTube?
Oh, it's everywhere on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed that, but
Yeah.
in between Gymkhanas, I guess I missed it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So you get this Baja Bug, and inevitably there's got to be some metal work that needs to be done.
Oh, after I rolled it, yeah.
Oh, let's talk about do tell.
I thought I wanted to be a rally car driver. I was watching WRC on Speed Channel every weekend, taping them. And I would go out after school, after high school, and I'd practice drifting this thing. Put my brother in the hospital one time because he was coming around a corner on his mini bike, and I was coming around the corner in the Baja Bug. Full drift, full lock, and then I see him too late, and got him a life flight to a children's hospital in San Diego.
Oh, dude.
So that's pretty intense. But yeah, when I rolled it, just showing off for friends. Yeah, abandoned vacant field at night. No one really saw it. Just 1,200 cc's of pure
Fury. Did you wind up back on your wheels, or was it on the roof?
We had to push it over.
Okay.
Yeah. It was on its side.
Right.
The back window popped out without braking somehow. I crawled out the back window. My friends and I pushed it over, and a cop drove by at the same moment. I don't know how he didn't see us. Thank God he didn't. I was 16. Yeah, I was 16.
It was one of those moments where your life flashes before you.
I was in a spin dry.
And then
You know
you're
what I mean?
okay.
Right.
And then you see a cop and your life flashes before you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I drove it home, broke the transmission nose cone. So second and third gear only or something like that. Made it home and proceeded to rebuild it the second half of the school year. And I had it finished. That was in February. I had it finished the weekend after graduation.
So is that where you started to venture into metal shaping and welding and stuff like that? Or
I think that's where my tendency to really want to do a good job, be a little bit too obsessive compulsive about things.
Sure.
That's where that started. The metal work and welding, I didn't know how to do any of that. I got a C on my high school welding test. You know, I had metal shop for senior year. But yeah, it wasn't until college that I really got some better influences. I started taking TIG courses. I took a metal shaping class from Gene Winfield, and then I really dove into the metal.
That's awesome. Gene Winfield.
Yeah, and he's still alive. Bless his soul.
Yeah.
I think he's 93.
Something like that.
I went to his birthday party last year.
Living legend.
Yeah, seriously.
So cool.
He still dyes his hair like jet black.
So awesome. Still slicks it back.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah, I love it.
No, it's hilarious.
So for those of you who don't know Gene Winfield, you've got to Google him right now. I mean, in terms of Southern California car culture, he's one of the kings. Mm-hmm. He's up there with George Barris and Ed Iskandarian and all those guys. But Gene's one of the hot rod kings.
Big time customizer.
Yeah,
legend.
exactly. Yeah.
Jade Idol, look that up. I think he did cars for Blade Runner back in the day.
Gene Winfield did do cars for Blade Runner.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he had them out. He lives up in the high desert.
He lives in Mojave.
Yeah. And he still has some of them on his property.
I think so.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Very just a regular guy.
He works his ass off.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that regular.
No, but I'm saying he doesn't put on any airs or whatever.
No, he doesn't give a flip about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, he just gets to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's how he's still doing it. He's just refuses to quit.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for not stopping, because a lot of guys will retire and be dead in a few years.
Yeah.
You've got to have goals, and you've got to have something to live for. And, golf and fishing doesn't cut it for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't think I could get much fulfillment from that in comparison to creating things from your mind, Because that's what it really comes down to. Whether you're a car nut or a bike nut or a plane nut, or if you want to build submarines, like creating something that hasn't been done before from an idea or a thought.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding.
Well, and you are a really creative guy. I mean, I've seen so many different oddities that come from your workshop.
Thank you.
I mean, and when I say oddities, I guess what I mean is
Are you talking about the 3D printed cast iron saber-tooth tiger skull?
Yeah, that's a good example. No. I mean, what I'm saying is that your creativity and your metalwork doesn't really know any bounds. There's not a single genre that you work in.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And if it can be made with metal, you'll try it, which is really cool.
I will try it until I rip my hair out. No.
Too late.
Yeah.
No, but how would you define yourself professionally?
I hate that question. I used to be an auto restorer. I guess that's where I gained the real meat and potatoes of my skills. But now I would prefer to be a prototype engineer of sorts. I'll still take on the juicy projects like Half 11, stuff like that. I can't say no to, because that's another original thought from someone's mind.
And Half 11, by the way, is this insane custom 911.
Right.
It's basically
mid-engine.
Yeah, tell us.
It's I might just not stop if I start telling you. Half 11 is a Porsche Type 455.5. It's a recreation of a car from back in the day. These twin brothers, the Bryden twins, both have worked for various car companies as auto designers. They've found this car and are trying to bring it back from the dead, and I'm helping them do that. It's a Porsche Roadster. It's like one of the secret Porsches. I'm not that big into Porsche culture, especially for being an air-cooled guy.
Go figure.
Right? But this thing is just obscene. Tube chassis like a Can-Am car. Front half of a 911. Mid-engine V8. Gigantically wide tires. And we're hoping to debut it in July on a level publicly. Right now it's in the workshop, and big things are happening.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of concept renderings.
There have been a lot of renderings.
And it's really exciting because there's so many different directions that it can be taken to.
Every time we meet up, there's a new idea.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of their future concept stuff. It's where this car is leading. And I'm very excited about that.
By the way, you said it's got a V8.
It does.
Where's that engine sourced from?
I can't really tell you.
Oh, wow. Wow, okay.
So they asked me to recreate the aluminum bodywork for Half 11. And so we started last year. The car right now is at Scarborough Performance, getting the chassis finished up. And hopefully in a little while, it'll come back to our shop, and we'll continue to push on the bodywork.
Let me see if I can describe this, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
So it's almost like it's chopped and sectioned, right?
It's a lot wider than a normal 911.
Okay.
The flares are gigantic, but there's something I call asymmetrical visual balance When you look at the car from, they call it plan view, like you pull out the plans, top down view, you're looking at something from bird's eye view. So when you look at the plan view, you can really see the flow of it all and the visual weight and balance it has from front to back. But the front flares are enormous. They're like 7-inch flares. They're not your normal RS flares, you know? So pretty extreme.
When I look at the concept renderings, it's unmistakably 911.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It hasn't gone way off the charts.
Right.
You know,
It hasn't gone into space.
Yeah. The car is obviously Porsche derived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a variant, and they're bringing it back from the dead.
There's an unfinished quality to the project,
Right.
because it's not completely. It doesn't have a complete body.
Right.
So the rear half of the car is going to be fairly open, right? And you're going to be able to see the tube chassis and everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which
There are different versions of the car.
Right.
I think this one, it's nicknamed half 11, half of a 911. So
Right.
it's basically from the doors forward, visually Porsche.
Right.
And from there back, it's visually Can-Am Racer. You
It's
know what I
something
mean?
like out of Metal Gear or something.
What's Metal Gear?
It's like a video game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
I'm the young one here.
I know. What am I doing talking about video games?
You got kids. I don't.
But you know what? My kids don't play video games.
Okay.
But my son's allowed to play one video game on his mom's phone,
Okay.
and he gets 20 minutes a day, and that's
All right.
it. We kind of crack the whip around here.
Okay.
So you've got half 11 going, which is an ongoing project, and it's not like a customer came to you and just said, "I need this," whip it up.
Oh, right.
It's constantly in development, and you're part of that.
I don't have any input in the design,
Right.
but how we achieve the results, obviously, I'm in charge of. But yeah, it's really interesting to work together with them, coming from the auto restoration field, and learning from my mentors, and them coming from a more professional automotive field. They work with clay modelers every day. They are the designers. And it's interesting to see how they, the kinds of language they use in design is different than what you and I know. So it's interesting to hear them talk like that and how they express their ideas is different than the coach building that I come from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm sure that it is an incredible learning experience for you too.
I'm gleaning as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soak it up.
It's really wild.
You mentioned that you come from the coach building world.
Right.
How did you get in there?
I took the class with Gene, started working on my own truck. I had a 55 Chevy pickup. I started making custom things for it, and I wound up getting a job at a dune buggy shop, a sheet metal shop, working for Jeff Davis. And he was making some of the most outrageous aluminum bodies for dune buggies back in the Glamis sand car era of like the mid 2000s.
Right. Very angular stuff, very geometric.
Right. And he was starting to English wheel roof panels and louver engine covers and do all these different things. I was there for about a year, and then one day an old guy walks in and asks me to talk to the owner of the place, and I was practicing TIG welding furiously, trying to make more money and get somewhere, and I was just stuck and not really happy with where I was at. Like I always wanted more immediately, and I could never work hard enough to get better soon enough. So the gentleman that walked through the door was Alan Taylor from Alan Taylor Company in Escondido, and he specialized in pre-war French cars, Bugattis, Delahaye's, Tabalagos, stuff like that.
That's a niche.
Right in Escondido. I had no idea. And so I went to go pay him a visit one day, and I walked in the back room where they were doing real metal shaping. And my to-be mentor was shaping the trunk lid on a Bugatti Roadster, Type 57C Roadster. So yeah,
Wow.
my mind blew up, and I was like, I have to work here. I'll do anything, and they could see it in my face. So yeah, I think I got hired a month later.
At that point, by the way, did you even know what you were looking at?
I had just picked up a box of Sports Car International magazines from an old friend, and discovered what coach building was. I saw an Alfa Romeo.
Probably an 8C or something.
No, this was like a 60s. Man, what is that?
Probably a
Shameful that I don't know it.
no, a Sprint Speciale or something like that. Something like really flowing and
TZ3 or
a TZ, a TZ2
Okay.
Zagato. Okay,
it was a Zagato.
it was a Alpha Zagato. Yeah,
Right. So
TZ2.
I saw that, and I was just like, I've never seen that before. You know, I go to the cruise night every night with my 55 Chevy pickup, and I can name every freaking car, but I'm like, what's a Zagato? Like, what is that?
Right.
You know, I had no idea that was a coach built in a special place, you know, outside of Alfa Romeo. And so when I walked in to the back room at Alan Taylor Company, I was really walking into something special. And luckily they took me in. So yeah, the first day, my manager had to have a lay it down talk, like stop being scared, because I'm like walking around these $1 million cars and I'm freaking out, like I'm sweating. And I'm supposed to build a taillight bracket for this Bugatti Roadster on my first day. He's like, you can do this. And he said, it's just paint. It's just steel. It's just rubber, just like any other car. If you mess it up, we'll fix it. Try not to. Be careful. But don't be overly cautious.
Yeah, don't be paralyzed.
Yeah, and that's what it was in the beginning. And over the next year of working there before moving on with my manager, it was a wild ride of heavy deadlines, all the reality TV show BS that's out there about the hectic, crazy deadline. Like, that was my life for that year, getting cars ready for Pebble Beach and high profile customers that want way too much for way too little. I didn't know about the too little part back then. But remember working 19 hours one day as a $15 an hour employee. You know what I mean?
Wild.
Like, you got to really want it. You got to really want that job to put up with stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But the cars were mesmerizing.
I think there's a parallel here, which is the museum world. A lot of people will work in the museum world just to be around the art because it's so amazing.
Right.
And they make nothing.
Oh, right.
You know, but just to be exposed to it and touch it and be around it.
Yeah. Take care of it.
And I mean, these cars are art. They're rolling art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you talked about how, you know, there's that intimidation factor. It's easy to kind of put that level of automobile on a pedestal and be frightened. And I also think a lot of car guys don't understand metalwork. Mechanical stuff is much more straightforward to comprehend.
Yeah.
But how you get a piece of flat stock into a fender.
That's the moment in time where coach building makes sense.
Right.
It's not production stamping yet, you know?
Yep. And you can watch YouTube videos and stuff. And that's really helpful to demystify it.
Oh, about the metal shaping?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's form and shape, there's shrink and stretch. There's so many ways you can get yourself buggered into a corner and you got to walk away from the panel.
You could put, 10, 20, 30 hours into a panel and then screw it up and have to start over.
Walk away from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how else are you going to learn?
There isn't really any way
Yeah.
other than that.
You can't read a book and do it right the first time.
Mm-hmm. You either need to be an apprentice, which I was for 6 years or so, paralleling the mentor or master, and you're still going to mess things up.
Sure.
Of course you are. So you're on the other end of the wheel, but you're going through the motions, and you can kind of, if you're paying attention, you can gauge what's working, what isn't, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. Individual violent movements aren't going to make a really nice flowing panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to spread that force out through many hits, many bites, many touches to create the forms. Because there is this three-dimensional shape that the car is, and then there's anything outside of that to a certain amount that it's not accurate anymore. And that's a big thing with the restored cars is accuracy. There are many of cars that have been doctored up to make them more appealing. Some original cars from back in the day weren't that good looking. Some of them were just kind of funny, but in the auto restoration process, some of the proportions can be like slightly manipulated, and I've seen it. That's dirty, isn't it? Telling all the secrets.
No, I like it.
But
I mean,
it happens.
give us an example.
There is record of the car with vintage photographs usually, and you can tell, if you have an eye for that kind of thing.
So you're saying some owners will have certain lines massaged on the car?
Yeah. They're customizing with or without the K.
Yeah.
Like Gene Winfield in the 50s, trying to make a car more beautiful. It's a taboo subject, but...
Well, it is the easiest thing in the world to get the proportions on a car wrong.
Oh, yeah. That's what happens most of the time.
And what's crazy is people will put ungodly hours into a car, and it'll be wrong from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And it costs just as much.
To have an ugly car?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's wild to me. There's a certain mindset of don't bash it because the guy put so much work into it.
Right.
And I don't want to bash anyone, but I mean, ugly's ugly.
Yeah, I mean, the standards today are the same as they were back in the day.
Yeah.
A Van Voren car or a Fagoni Falaschi car, like they're known for their beauty, and they hit the mark back in the day.
Right.
Touring, like Zagato, like all these names. It's unfortunate when a car is just a little bit odd looking, and quirky can be kind of cute sometimes. It'll have a little bit of a charm to it. But yeah, sometimes cars are overly massaged.
So speaking of ugly cars that take as much time as a beautiful car to produce, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Leroy Hartung collection?
No.
Leroy Hartung was in his late 80s, I think, and he had been collecting cars, motorcycles, Petroliana, you name it, I think since the 30s. Something like that. He was a very old guy with a huge collection in Illinois, I believe it was.
Okay.
And when he died, it was all auctioned off. Okay. One of the cars that was in his collection was this Roadster that was BMW based. I think it was based on like a 328 from the 30s. It had a BMW straight six, triple carbs. It was built by a gentleman named Hermann Spahn, a German guy.
Okay. I have not seen that.
Okay, so
wow.
We're just looking at the car on Google right now, but
yeah.
So insane.
It's funky.
It's funky 50s. Just
yeah. Okay.
Every 50s design caricature.
Yeah.
Every design.
A lot of cheese.
Yeah, every crazy 50s design cliche in one car.
Yeah.
It's a car of cliches, right? Mm-hmm. It's got this crazy padded dash. It's got the rear end of the car looks like the Buick LeSabre show car.
Okay.
The front end of the car looks like an electric Razor. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
It sold for big money. Mm-hmm. Somebody loved it enough, thought it was crazy enough, and it is kind of a cool little piece of history. But the reason I bring it up at all is it took a guy a lot of time to build.
Oh, yeah.
And it is just horrific. And thank God there's only one of them. I'll say it.
I'm sure that guy loved the hell out of it, though.
But yeah, the work.
The builder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the work is the work at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And you want to create something of kind of memorable, lasting,
right?
Sort of timeless, right?
Yeah, it has to be bold enough to make an impression.
You know, in order for it to be memorable and appreciated, just think of the simple...
Yeah, try and be an original today.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When every car looks like every other car.
Mm-hmm.
But
they talked to me about that, the designer brothers, twin brothers, and they said a lot of that is determined by current rules about how tall and how wide and like all sorts of parameters about a car.
All of the impact standards and safety regulations.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
So they're all, all these guys, these clay modelers, these designers are dying to do something extraordinary, and they're limited by all these impact standards and whatnot.
That's a point that Jay Leno has made many times, which is that the last pure design year for cars was 1967, because after 1967, the impact standards started to limit the designer.
Strangle the design, yeah.
Right. So anything pre-67, they had free reign. Mm-hmm. And after that, it's kind of all downhill until now. So I just looked at a new mid-size pickup. I won't say who built it or what model it was, but I just saw a new mid-size pickup on the road the other day. And it was just proportionally awful. And part of the reason is that the doors are, the ratio of door sheet metal to window is completely off. The windows are too small.
Okay. I know what truck you're talking about.
The doors are super tall.
Yeah.
The way the bed and the cab meet, just awful. That's the way a lot of things are going.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, my friend.
I guess so, but I kind of, I look at it in this way. Kids today, oh God, it makes me sound so old. So kids today have never heard maybe an Elvis record, or they've never heard the Beatles, and they're blown away. But they're also like taken aback, like, oh, what is that? Because they're listening to some real crap. They're just listening to awful. Did you know that a lot of the hit records now are written by a very small group of people, and they're incredibly formulaic, and they're basically using computer programming to write hit records now. Yeah, it's crazy.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and so. What's missing out of music now, I think, in part, is spontaneity and true human creativity.
Okay. Because
AI is involved.
Okay.
The parallel here is that automotive designers are constrained, by these safety regulations, and I'm all for safety, but it's watering it all down.
Yeah.
That's why there's such a sameness.
Yeah.
And that's the point that the twins were making to you.
Right, absolutely.
By the way, how's your coffee?
It's good.
Okay.
It's cooled down enough to where I can drink it.
And you've got enough?
Yeah.
Do you like that cinnamon stick in there?
It's good.
Isn't it good?
I usually don't do that.
Yeah, so. Now you will. So you're working in this high-end restoration shop.
Yeah. Let's see, I did that from when I was 19 or 20 up until 26. And then I kind of skipped town for almost a year. I went base jumping, went to Europe, found some family roots, came back and was offered a Ferrari restoration. Took it at any risk. The guy was not a great customer. It was painful to learn those lessons, but I'm glad I had them.
You're talking about just customer interaction?
Yeah, I mean, you go from having the same customer, my boss, every day, knowing how to communicate with them, more or less knowing what they really want, because you've had enough time to make judgments about their values. So you know what they're after. But when you're running a business, these guys are under pressure because they got these $1 million builds, and they want to chew you up if you're not delivering the way they want you to deliver. And unless they're paying every 2 weeks, you got to find someone else to pay the bills if they're not going to pay the bills. So I learned many great lessons from the first handful of years that I was in business. And eventually I stepped away from auto restoration, and I've been way more creative. I don't have to copy or recreate something. I don't have to be a ghost anymore.